It's Cheer.
And this is Loathing.
We're here to talk to you about movies.
She loves everything. I hate everything.
This should be fun.
This is a morbidly beautiful podcast.
Hello again and welcome to another episode of Cheer and Loathing, featuring myself, Loathing, also known as Casey, also known as, I don't know, whatever you fucking want to call me. And over there we have Stephanie as Cheer.
Hi. Do you want me to fill in the blanks of what I call you, or is that for the audience?
Please do. Please. Belittle
No.
me.
God, that's your job, not my job. I'm Cheer.
That's true. That's true. So what are we talking about this week? It's been a while. Jobs and stuff get in the way. We do our episodes once every 3 to 5 months at this point. But hey, it's fine.
Oh, I know. We have not been good.
No.
Yeah, we had a little scheduling snafu, and then I was covering a film festival, so we had to push this one a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But this week, but I think it still works, and I'm super excited about it. And this week, so I was responsible for our film picks.
As per usual.
And I think the good thing is that we can both agree that I picked a couple of absolute masterpieces for us. So you are welcome for that. And your silence speaks volumes, and I appreciate it. So in honor of the start of spring and all those lovely young people recently enjoying spring break, I picked a couple of slashers about college kids on spring break in the Deep South, which, if you're in the South, there's no way anything could ever go wrong.
Well, and it's also always spring in the South.
No, it's always summer in the South.
Yeah, that's fair.
We get a day of spring, if we're being honest.
Yeah, same here, to be completely fair. And that comes it's
January always winter
2nd. There. Yeah. It's weird because
so combined we have 2 seasons.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because your spring break is mid-March, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ours is
February,
second week of February, because it doesn't make a difference.
So when I was like, "Hey, Casey, let's do a spring break themed episode," you were probably like, "The hell?"
Well, I'm aware of the American spring break, but yes. Well, I mean, the difference between today is the March 25th, and it is 1 degree and snowing. So.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next time you should pick something super Canadian for us to talk about, since I'm doing something super American and super Southern as well. So next time you just, think of something good Canadian we could talk about.
I can definitely try and try to find something Canadian-ish. I'm sure there's a Canadian horror movie out there that is so stereotypical Canadian-y that...
There's a shit ton of Canadian stuff, but I appreciate your enthusiasm on this matter. It's very endearing.
Of course.
Okay, so let's talk about what we're talking about. We have got 1987's Shallow Grave and 2006's Simon Says, which marks the glorious return of Crispin Glover to our podcast. Mm-hmm. And as you remember, the last time we talked about Crispin Glover, it went really, really well. So I am hoping for a repeat of that.
Was that time. Willard, or did we do something after that?
It was Willard, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you know how I feel about Crispin, and I know how you feel about him, so this should be good. Now, I was thinking about where we start, because the past few times I have not been writing very many notes. I was like, no, it's fine, I can wing it. And this one, I wrote a lot of notes, which is either a good or bad thing.
Because I wrote no notes this week.
I'm not surprised. And
Usually
I
do, but...
I know. So we're doing a little reversal here.
Yeah.
I've told you this before, but whenever I do this kind of every time, but whenever I'm watching these films for the podcast, your voice is always in my head, which is quite disturbing. And I'm always watching it thinking what is Casey experiencing right now? How is he feeling? How's he vibing with this film?
It's usually pain. That's usually what you can...
Not this time though, right? This time it's all sunshine and happiness. I'm sure.
We'll get to that 100%.
Okay, so let's get to it. So I was thinking about where we start, and I think let's just start in chronological order, if that sounds good, and we can start with Shallow Grave.
Thinking the same thing.
Okay, good. Oh my God, we're on the same page already. This is a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know that you typically like to start with the Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Yes.
But we're kind of shit out of luck on both of these.
There aren't any. That's how good these movies were. They transcend Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, they're pretty obscure.
Yeah.
So we can't really talk about how other people feel about this film. So we're just going to have to talk about how we feel.
Well, I mean, there's some audience scores here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could talk about them if you want to.
But you
can't compare
don't,
them to critic.
Yeah, because you don't believe in the audience score as a proper rating.
Well, that's not really
the
exactly
audience is
true.
stupid and doesn't understand the art of filmmaking. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to share whatever information you're able to find?
I mean,
just jump in.
For Shallow Grave, it's 64% audience rating on like 50-ish reviews, and there's one actual tomato meter review. And from what I can see, it's a positive one. But I mean, that was written June 27th, 2007, like the day it came out. So that's Shallow Grave. So like that's probably the day fucking the other one came out that we're talking about. What the fuck was that called? Simon Says.
Simon Says.
Jesus Christ.
This is off to a great start.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, that's 20 odd years old now. So
yeah,
that doesn't count.
Well, I will say this before we get started. I do think, not to spoiler alert this episode, I think we're
spoil
arguably...
a movie that is 35 years old.
Well, spoil the episode of what we're going to talk about is what I meant.
Okay.
I do think we are arguably going to start with the best film first, but that is not saying much.
Okay.
It's not setting the bar super high. But I am gonna, so what I think I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run through some major plot points, and I want you to like jump in and comment, because I think it's important that we talk about some of these scenes in order.
Hold on, you're gonna talk about the plot points of Shallow Grave, so you're not gonna say anything.
Well, I'm gonna try.
Okay.
But I want to, so I want to start and say that right out of the gate, I was like, hell yes, I'm 100% on board. Now whether I stay on board is a whole other different topic, but we begin with this like ridiculous credit sequence that is so deliciously 80s. I can't stand it. So you've got this like synthy 80s music, and then basically you're panning across this like dorm with a bunch of college girls. And of course, for no reason at all, and this scene is completely irrelevant, doesn't make any difference whatsoever, but you've got a bunch of girls in various stages of undress, most of them in their underwear. And then I wrote down the first air quotes real scene is post credits is a girl taking a shower. And this shower scene is quite lengthy. And there is a very lingering focus on her boobs. And when I say lingering, I mean lingering. Like, it's not like hey, she's got nice boobs, let's look at them. It's like camera zooms in, focuses on nothing but her boobs for a good, what felt like 20 minutes. It was probably like 30 seconds. But
and then just like the director went to have a wank.
It was very male gazy, like the male gaziest thing I've ever seen. And I was like, okay. And I was like, all right, you know what? It's horror. Like, I can deal with this trope. But the funniest thing about this scene, there's a couple of funny things. One of the funniest things is that this girl does not have a name. If you look at her name in IMDb credits, it is Shower Girl.
Boobs.
She is literally Shower Girl.
Boobs.
And after this scene ends, she disappears and is never to be seen again. And this scene has absolutely nothing to do with the entire rest of the plot. Mm-hmm. So they shot an entire scene that the sole purpose, and they didn't even try to make them pretend there was another purpose. The sole purpose of this is that she's hot and has nice boobs.
Yeah,
and I don't know if I like applaud this or am abhorred by this. I just really can't tell. I'm like, in a way, I'm like, good for them, I guess. But, and then there's, so right after that, there's also this sort of really like rusy thing that they do where it looks like she gets stabbed in the shower, and it is essentially a shot for shot remake of Psycho shower scene. Mm-hmm. I mean, it goes way past homage, and it's like, okay, we're going to be as derivative as hell on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so they do this like fake, oh, she's getting stabbed. And basically what happened is these girls are pranking her, and they put red dye in her shampoo to make it look like blood, I still don't know how she thought she was getting stabbed because she was obviously not, but she's and she's does this like when you think she's dying, she does this like ridiculous slow-mo death scene. It's not well done whatsoever, and it's so stupid. And then like surprise, it's all a prank, she's fine. But it doesn't matter at all because it has nothing to do with anything. It just sets up now they're off on their like road trip to the spring break vacation they're gonna do.
Yes, to their grandmother's house.
I think that's like the first 20 minutes of the film. Like it's kind of bananas.
I feel like they were trying to make a different movie, and then like halfway through they're like, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work, or maybe there's like some production issue, or I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It was just like this was supposed to be like a prank movie gone wrong, and then it was like, maybe the cast didn't want to come back. Maybe after I don't know what happened, but yeah. You're not wrong. So that's like, that brings me to another point is that, so I start watching this thinking it's your quintessential cheesy 80s slasher. And I'm on board with that. Like, I love that shit, right? Even if it's like objectively garbage, it's usually super fun. And that's what I thought I was getting. That's what I thought I was getting from the trailer, from the sort of like quote unquote marketing, from this opening scene. I was like, all right, I'm all in. This is cheesy 80s fun. Right. And it starts off that way. And, you know, as the girls are on their car taking their little road trip, it continues. It continues that way for a bit. And then, like, pretty early on, it takes the shift. And suddenly it's a completely different film. And it's really more of a dramatic thriller. And it's not even what I would really call a slasher. And it gets really sort of serious in a weird way. And I'm like, and I guess on one hand, I'm like, it becomes an objectively, I'm air quoting a lot. It becomes an objectively air quote better movie, but it's not a fun movie at that point. And so I had a really strange relationship to this weird ass little film. I'm going to stop there and let you share some thoughts. You're going to tell me this wasn't your new favorite phrase, life affirming? It wasn't life. Is that my new favorite phrase? Where did you get that? On basically every Instagram post you posted from South by Southwest for the last like week and a half was this film was life affirming. This speech was life affirming. This director was life affirming. This piece of celery was life affirming. So I just had to, make sure this film wasn't life affirming for you. I don't know if you saw, but I intentionally did a post on Instagram that was really targeted at you specifically. Okay. Where I said, I posted something and I was like, this movie's so great. And I said, listen, I can hear you haters out there now thinking like, oh God, is everything a masterpiece? But here's the thing. When you're at South by Southwest, everything is a fucking masterpiece because it's so carefully curated that like everything you see is so mind-blowingly good that it's like everything is better than the last. And I knew, like, as I'm posting this shit, it sounds like I'm like a broken record being like, well, that was brilliant and that was brilliant and that was amazing and that was phenomenal. But it's true. It's literally true. And it was a life-affirming experience. And now I'm back with you and I get to like go back to the reality of how much life is normally crap. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're welcome. Because I mean, I believe you said that on a movie about like a shell. So I was like, okay, Marcel the shell. She's lost her fucking mind. It's happened. Casey, shut the fuck up. At least you fucking happened. Casey, I need you. I know. Okay, this might be our next choice, even though it's not horror. You need to see Marcel the Shell. Oh, do I? And then you need to talk to me. Then you need to talk to me about whether or not it is life affirming, because that movie. The movie will take your breath away. And I think even a cynic like you, will be charmed by that film. And I need you to see it so that we can discuss it. Right. On air or off. So Shallow Grave. Now I just want to talk about Marcel the Shell. So kind of where I want to be right now. In a shell? No, in a shallow fucking grave. Oh, no. Casey. Preferably alive, dying slowly, and inhaling the dirt. Oh God! So I'm guessing this was not life affirming for you. I don't know what this movie was. It was very of the time. I think both movies this week are very of their time. It was now because I found it on a streaming site called Plex. I don't know if you've ever heard of Plex, but it's kind of like Tubi.
I've heard of Plex.
It's like it's a free thing. So I found it on there, and maybe it was just because like it didn't translate well to digital, but like they look like blobs.
Oh, the quality was garbage.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that fucking Scarecrow movie we watched a long time ago, like in terms of quality, like, or even that South Park dudes movie. I forget the name of it. We also did. Just like very hard to watch because it was so poor quality, and like I didn't know VHS like quality was that drastic from like good to bad, but apparently it is. So it was difficult to watch in that sense from a very technical point of view. And then
it's crazy. Oh, sorry.
No, go on. No, it's fine.
Well, I was gonna say it's crazy because that's kind of the part that I found charming because I have such a fondness and nostalgia for 80s VHS, and it looked like shit. Let's just call a spade a spade. But that part I found kind of charming because I'm like, oh, this makes me feel like it's, those kind of films.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get that same vibe from these kind of movies. It was, like I said, it was difficult to watch. The sound mixing obviously was terrible, and the acting was, top notch as you would expect in a movie of this nature. But no, it was, oh man, I don't know how to describe it. It was forgettable. I'll give it that much. I'm having difficulty remember anything besides like the very final scene where it was almost like Robert Redford turning his head with, the meme.
And that's why I wrote the plot points down because I knew you were going to be like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it
was
was
like, we need to have some documentation.
It was intriguing, I guess, to a degree, like the way it transitioned from like boob horror to kind of like a more of a suspenseful thing.
Boob horror, yeah.
But it was just not, like, the acting was very poor. Even like the ones who were quote unquote decent were still not, and that could be the writing, just nothing in this movie was particularly good. And I don't know, like, it didn't catch my attention at any point in time, and it was kind of a slog to get through.
I will give you that. It was way more difficult to watch than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be a stupid, fun, good time. And I thought, yeah, we'll talk about how bad it was, but at least we'll be like, at the end of the day going, you know what, but it's a good time. It's a good time and you should watch it, but it's not a good time. So that's problematic.
Yes.
I do have some points I do want to talk there. You're right. There is not a lot of like quote unquote plot that is really relevant. There are some interesting scenes and some choices that I'm like, that's fascinating that you did that. I do think that this movie, in summation, so I think that it really does a couple of things. It has a couple of what's the word I'm looking for? Theses. And theses. How do you say that word?
I don't fucking know.
Me neither, obviously. Motifs, whatever, themes. Themes is a good word. I can say that.
Theme works, yes.
I think maybe. Okay, so one, this is a very early version of ACAB. All cops are bad. Where you get some, even though I guess we could argue that the deputy sheriff is a quasi good dude, even though he starts off kind of a dick and he has a lot of dicky moments. He is, when they first meet him, he is being very condescending and sitting in front of a giant Confederate flag, which was lovely. And I'm like, I love that anytime a filmmaker, and I try to do some research to figure out like where these filmmakers were from, but I always love when filmmakers portray the South and then it's just so over the top. And that's how you know you're in the South, is that like overt racism and misogyny, which is really fun. Which is another motif.
Art imitating life, really.
Yeah. It's another motif, is that the South is an actual cesspool, which I don't know how much I'm going to argue with, even though I'm in the South. It's maybe not all this bad, hopefully, but yeah, this was pretty bad. And, that the normal motif of just like guys are kind of the worst. Men in general are kind of the problem in the world.
Well, but I mean, those two guys that they met at a diner for 5 minutes spent their entire fucking weekend trying to find these girls. Because the one dude was worried for some reason. He's like, they're not here. They must be in trouble.
No, here's the thing. They weren't really worried. They went after them because the girls swiped their ID and money, all their money. And so they were like, we gotta find this shit. I don't think it was really super altruistic. And also, that's another thing I wrote down. This side plot of these dudes that they meet in this restaurant, this divey restaurant, is so unnecessary and dumb, and I don't even know why it exists, because they actually do nothing. They add nothing. They don't further the plot in any way. And it's the weirdest thing ever. I'm like, why? Because I feel like that could have been an interesting side plot. Like, they could have done something with it, but they absolutely did not.
Well, they needed somebody to be looking for them, and I think that was it. Just to kind of like move the plot forward.
But did it? Did it though?
Well, I mean, it wasn't not much of a plot to move forward. I don't know. And yeah. Like there were a lot of holes in the plot.
A lot of holes.
Like yeah.
One scene. So some of the scenes where they did basically we've talked about this. It's essentially a pretty serious kind of I mean, they play it pretty straight. A kind of thriller of this girl witnesses a murder in the woods, and come to find out, and he realizes that he's been kind of seen, and come to find out he is the sheriff of this town. Dun dun dun. And kind of the worst dude ever, and now he is like on a crusade to murder all these women who know what he did. And
which he does like 3 minutes after seeing two of them. Like half this cast gets eliminated pretty early on. Yeah. And there's some, I was trying to decide if there were some cool kill scenes. Nah. I think the only one that really I was like, that's kind of cool is the slow-mo headshot. I thought that was kind of well done. The others are pretty unforgettable, pretty forgettable. And just really like very, I'm going to strangle you kind of thing. But there are choices they made, which are, again, sort of wink at the fact that they were like, I'm going to make a fun slasher, but somehow made this like thing that is absolutely not that, but they still have a lot of like nods to that. And one of them is when they get this flat tire and they're pulling off to the side of the road. And I was going to say a little side, I was going to make fun of us. I was all prepared to make fun of the fact that this happens in Florida, and, stay out of Florida. It's awful. And I was going to, hate on that state. But what actually, they're in Georgia apparently, because they had a breakdown on the way to Florida. So This happens in Georgia and not Florida. It was filmed in Florida, if anybody cares. Nobody does.
But it happens in Georgia. Not that it matters. I know. So they're on their way. They get a flat tire. They pull off the side of the road. One of the girls, Rose, the short-haired brunette girl.
They had names?
She had removed this. I know. I did write down that I don't know who any of their names are, and I had to look them up, which is, again, sad. Because they're kind of like the entire film is centers around these four girls that you don't really know their names are, and you don't really care, and you can't really describe them other than like short brown hair and long blonde hair, which is not a good description. But anyway, Rose has removed the spare tire because she would need to fit more luggage in the car. So that's a good way to be like, okay, now they're stranded. They can't fix the tire.
Right.
And so they're like, well, shit, now what do we do? And she's like, well, I guess we're stuck here. And then proceeds to take her pants off for some reason.
Yeah.
And she's in these like, and they don't ever explain it. It's not like she's like, well, I'm going to go sunbathe while we try to figure this out. She just stands around in her in her underwear.
Well, I think they're like
reason.
bikini bottoms, but yeah.
They are, but essentially they're like
I also thought that was strange, yes.
and it's a slow-mo. Like, she doesn't just like take them off like normal person. She like seductively removes them slowly with her butt in the air, and then she just stands around. And there's a lot of scenes of her just standing around in like a nothing shirt and these little like nothing bikini bottoms. And she's got a great body and she looks great, but there's a lot of, again, lingering shots on like, look how hot this girl is that serve the plot in zero way. And it's like, again, I don't know whether to be impressed or mortified that they don't even try to hide it. They don't give it a fake subtext or a reason. They're just like, okay, here's a gratuitous boob shot. Here's a
Yeah.
gratuitous hot girl shot.
It's 1987. We got to show boobs and ass.
It's so weird in this film though because it doesn't fit. It's so out of place in the rest of this film, and it's just the most bizarre choices ever that they make.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make a note of that because, and then another time I made the note of that, and this was, I think, for me, arguably the weirdest fucking scene of this entire movie. And
Is
I
it
want
the
to get your
jail cell
thoughts on it.
scene?
Yes. So the sheriff goes to kill one of these girls that's in this jail cell.
Yeah. But it turns into like a
And-
softcore porn for 5 seconds.
Well, because he's like, take your clothes off. And you think, because he's an awful, awful dude, like, okay, he's going to rape her. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's very uncomfortable. And you're like, oh, God damn it. And then for some reason, and I watched it a few times thinking, like, am I missing something? Is what's happening here? I didn't watch it because it was sexy. Let me just clarify, because I know you were going to say something. I watched it to be like, surely I missed something. So he's like, take your clothes off. And at first she's like, no, don't hurt me. And then she starts doing it. And then they start kind of making out. And it sort of starts to become like she's into it. And it's a sexy seduction scene.
Yeah.
And then, so she takes her shirt off. She gets to the point where she takes her shirt off. And then he just strangles her. It doesn't rape her. It doesn't do anything. It just strangles her. And then, like, she's just laying there with her boobs exposed. And it's like that whole seduction scene. The only point of it was that so he could get her to a point where she showed her boobs. Because the second her boobs were exposed, she dies. And it doesn't make it. First of all, it doesn't make any sense why he would do that. Because it's not like he was getting off on it or anything. Like he just, whatever. All he wanted to do was strangle her.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I don't understand why it sort of seemed like she was into it. And I guess I could kind of give it the benefit of the doubt. Like she's trying to play along so that she can be safe and not get hurt. But it's shot very weird. The music is very weird. It's all very upsetting and uncomfortable. And it's the most bewildering scene of all time. I don't fucking get that scene.
Yeah. I don't need to talk much during this one because, I mean, it seems like you are not a fan. Surprisingly, this is not a masterpiece that life affirmed everything that you've ever believed in. So, I guess, I mean, what's there to say? It's a shit movie. It really makes you wonder how these things get made.
Yes.
Like, somebody funded this movie. And this is back in a time, like, it was more, I would argue, more expensive to film an independent movie back in 1987 than it is today, because you can film a movie on your fucking phone today. Everybody's got one. And you can theoretically make a short film or an independent movie with your fucking iPhone. But back then, you needed a camera. At the very least, like the worst grade camera ever is probably still like $1,000 fucking dollars in today's money. And then you need the film and you need the sound equipment, because I don't think the cameras recorded straight to audio. Like back then, you needed some sort of external recording system. You need actors. You need settings. Like somebody spent money to make this movie, and they thought it was a good idea. And it baffles my fucking mind.
Well, I think at the time, it's like these movies were just making so much fucking money and the VHS market was so hot that essentially if you were just like, I want to do a slasher, they were like, hell yeah, do a slasher. And they didn't have to look great because nothing looked great on VHS. So we didn't have the same like standards for like high quality digital transfer, big screen type stuff that we have now.
Right, but didn't like
but that said,
the Tim Burton Batman movie come out like 2 years after this, and it looks fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
For VHS,
yeah,
or like film or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean that's an example of like real money being spent on a film. But yes,
obviously. But the point remains that like somebody thought they were going to make money off of this, and I don't know if this had a theatrical release. I doubt it. Probably straight to
I think so.
to VHS, but like. Just looking at a VHS tape, I feel like that's a lot of money invested into the hardware of a VHS tape.
I don't think you've seen a lot of 80s VHS movies because there is millions of them and they are 99% garbage. So this was definitely this was definitely not a time of
quality.
Lots of discretion being made as far as like choices. But that said, I think the way it was sold, I genuinely believe the way it was sold is like, hey, we're going to make a fun 80s slasher about these 4 hot girls that go on spring break and get murdered. And at the time, that's like gold.
That's money. But that's not what this movie
if
is,
I was a
though.
producer, I'd be like, yes, please. I know. That's my point. And my point is that I don't think anyone really knew, including maybe the filmmakers, what they were trying to make. And again, it's weird because I stand by this statement that I think that the film is arguably better than most like 80s slashers as far as just like there is a story, there is some acting, there is some like, you know, drama and stuff. Like it's not all about like kill, like naked girl, kill. It's like trying to tell a story. But at the same time,
that's his first mistake.
That's what makes it boring. It's just not fun to watch. And you know, I was like trying to find some reviews and stuff because I always like to sort of see what the perception is of these films. And they're not terrible reviews. Like I think that there's not a lot, obviously, but I think people genuinely are like, yeah, this is a pretty solid film, competently made film. And I guess it is, but I don't know. I just didn't have fun, and I wanted to have fun. I picked this because I thought this will be a really good time. And it was, like you said, it was kind of a slog, and I don't know. I feel bad saying that because, you know, I'm an art house girl, so I'm all for, like, slow-burning
you're
drama,
all for boring,
but
terrible
not for
movies.
this.
Yeah.
Shut up. So I think that's a good segue to our next film, which is different in almost every conceivable way.
Different but samey, if that makes sense.
I was not that excited to talk about Shallow Grave. I'm very excited to talk about Simon Says for so many reasons. You're like, okay.
I just noticed something on Rotten Tomatoes about this, though. And I don't know if this was like, I'm assuming this is a very, very post-release poster trailer thing that they have on here. Because it has Blake Lively on the cover. Yeah,
I have a note about that.
Okay.
I have a little bit of backstory that I want to talk about. It's very short.
Okay.
Before we get into the combo, if that's cool.
No, it's not, but go for it anyway.
Okay. No, it's gonna be very cool. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
So, the director who made this film is most known for making a little film in the 80s that was actually a big deal called Harry and the Hendersons. Super like family friendly film. Have you seen that film?
Yeah. He also apparently directed The Sandlot, Heading Home in 2007.
Oh, like one of the sequels?
Yeah.
Okay. So he made this film, Simon Says, when he was in his 60s. It's such a weird film for a man in his 60s to make, and especially given his filmography. Now,
he did Angels in the Outfield too? Motherfucker, this guy loves baseball. Sorry.
Now this film, this is where I was like, what? Okay. So it made its Texas premiere at a festival called Fantastic Fest, which is in Austin, and it's the one that I go to all the time where
There's
like,
a lot of film festivals
shit.
in Austin, isn't there?
I know. Well, there's a lot. There's two big ones. There's South by Southwest and there's Fantastic Fest.
Mm-hmm.
And Fantastic Fest is like a huge deal mostly for genre films.
Right.
It's like an internationally acclaimed festival. And
of course it is.
I wrote that I would have given anything to have been in this audience and to have experienced the audience reaction at Fantastic Fest, because Fantastic Fest has a great energy, right? And most of the films are like, it's like South by. They're really good. They're really well curated. And it's very rare that you see one that that isn't great. Like, you might have a ranking, but you don't watch something and you're like, well, that was garbage. Why the fuck did they show this? It's
and
some
then
stuff
insert
is
Simon Says.
Well, okay. So I was like, how the hell did this film have a premiere at Fantastic Fest? But it was back in 2006, and Fantastic Fest was founded in 2005. So I'm thinking maybe like it hadn't established itself. The pickings were a little more slim. Maybe the selection criteria wasn't as strong. I don't know. But I thought that's kind of insane that this movie was at that festival. And I really wanted to be in the audience of this. And so I was doing some research, and there was actually a Q&A after the film. And I was trying to find reviews from out of Fantastic Fest for when this movie screened. And somebody said the director was at the screening. And he said that he wanted to make this film especially because somebody told him that his demo reel was too soft. And he was trying to prove that he really had it in him. And he said that one of the things that really upset him or surprised him was that at an earlier screening, people laughed the whole time through this movie.
So it had a Tommy Wiseau The Room situation going on.
Right. And that upset him because he was like, I'm making a very serious, very gruesome
Hollywood
film
movie.
here. I don't understand what's funny.
It's a serious Hollywood movie.
Yeah. And I was like, it's crazy because it definitely feels like if you'd said, if the director said, no, this is intentionally over the top, it's meant to be funny, we go really super camp with this, like that's the point, and we just want to make an homage to 80s slashers but have fun with it, you would have had respect for that. You'd have been like, yeah, like I see what you're trying to do, like I get it. But for him to be like, no, this is very, very serious film, and then to make the choices that he makes is kind of insane.
Mm-hmm.
So with this film, we're going to once again talk about the seriously scenery-chewing Crispin Glover.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to argue something surprising. I'm going to argue that he is not great in this film, even though you know how much I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he is oddly, by far, the best part of this film. I think that he somehow races past horrible so rapidly that he ends up circling back to borderline genius.
Oh my God.
His southern accent that he does in this film is on a whole other level.
Well, that's almost more like a bayou accent. Like that's almost like the stereotypical like Louisiana deep south kind of thing,
I
right?
tried to look up
Where
I
this
tried to
was
look
supposed
up where
take
it was supposed to have taken place, and they were just like at the river in the. And I'm like, well, it's really not helpful. And I don't think they ever said or really like placed it anywhere.
I don't think so either.
So
no.
yeah, I definitely think it's definitely got that backwoods swampy vibe of like super rednecky, super like off the grid kind of bullshit.
Absolutely.
So maybe Louisiana would make sense. I don't know, but it's the reason it's kind of hard to place his accent is because it's not like a real accent. It's not like anything that exists, I think, in reality. It's the most insane thing ever.
It's how a lot of British people hear Americans doing British accents. Like, that is, sure, a generic, but where's that from? There's nobody who actually sounds like that. Well, that's like Cockney. But like the typical, like, oh, that's the British accent. But it's not, like, no British person ever sounds like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do a British accent to save my life, so I would be one of those people. They'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'd be like, this isn't it. This isn't British. Anyway, I need to tell you, I do have some plot points and scenes. Plot is another hilarious word to use in this film. Mm-hmm. But can we please talk about, the film begins with this black and white home movie.
Yes.
And it's two very young twin boys who I'm guessing is supposed to be, the two characters
Simon
in this
and
movie.
Stanley. Yeah.
Stanley, right. And they're very young. They're like running around in diapers. And they have, I don't know if this is supposed to be real. I'm not sure what they were going for here, but their hair is insane. It looks like they are both wearing like little Elvis wigs. And I don't understand the choice there. But I think it's not supposed to be like, oh, it's funny they're wearing a wig. I do think that's supposed to be their hair.
Yeah.
And then there's a later scene where they're teen boys. And
they have the same hair.
There's like, well, their hair is a little different, but they both have fake noses. Fake like Crispin Glover noses. And it looks so ridiculous. And some of like the choices like that where they have like the prosthetics of the hair and stuff, I'm like, okay, this is not helping your world building. This is taking me out of the world. What the hell are you even doing?
Mm-hmm.
But that start, I was like immediately like,
well, they also had those kids try to do the accent that Crispin Glover does. And it
the teen boys.
Yeah. Like it almost sounded British at some points. Like, it almost sounded like they slipped into, like, British. I'm like, are these actors British? But no, they're from Texas.
And I don't blame them. And here's why. Because what I think probably happened is the filmmaker was like, all right, listen to this accent. Listen to Crispin Glover. And then I need you to emulate that. And they're probably listening to it going, the fuck are we, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
what's happening? I can't imagine being told that I have to emulate Crispin Glover's accent in this film and try to be a young Crispin Glover. I'd be like, I'm out. I don't think there's a thespian in the world that can pull that off. I really don't. It's next level insane. But here's what's different about this film versus Shallow Grave and why I wanted to talk about it. Let's just get this out of the way. It's objectively garbage. Garbage. Like hot garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it has a redeeming quality about it.
No.
But it is super fun. Like, I was pretty entertained the whole time. And every time Glover's on the scene, I'm like weirdly charmed, even though he's a psychopath and like bananas. He just has this presence about him and a wackiness. Like, he just embraces wackiness so completely, and just goes balls to the wall that, I don't know, it's hard for me not to like giggle and smile. I definitely, if you watch this as a comedy, I think it 100% works. If you watch it as a serious slasher, it doesn't work at all. But if this film did not have Crispin Glover in it, I argue it's not worth a second of your time. Like, it's just an absolute waste of space. It's only his performance that saves this.
What if it wasn't Crispin Glover but Nicolas Cage?
I don't. It would be a different movie if it was Nicolas Cage, but I would watch the hell out of it. Yes.
I see. Yeah. I don't know where to start with this. It's just not good, man. Like, there's nothing about this movie. Like, the acting is terrible. The funny thing about the acting or the actors in this movie is the only two people other than Crispin Glover that I can see that ever had a career after this came in the last like 2 minutes when it was like the new group of kids came through, like Blake Lively and then Danielle Monet, I think her name is, who went on to be like a Disney
to your
kid.
point, they promote Blake Lively like, oh my god, this stars Blake Lively, and the whole movie you're like, what the fuck is Blake Lively?
Yeah,
and she
I'm like,
appears
do I
in the last 2 seconds? Yeah,
that's what I'm like. Do I have the wrong movie?
Yeah,
because every once in a while
Same.
that happens, right? I'm like, am I watching the right one? Like, is this legit? I don't know, but yeah, no, that's also like pre-nose job Blake Lively too, so she looks a little strange.
So here's a air quotes fun fact for you.
Her dad's a producer.
Yeah, like the entire Lively family is in this in little bit roles, and her dad plays one of the gravediggers.
Oh, is he also one of the
Pig is his
gravediggers?
name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crispin
and
Glover's
he's a
like
producer.
brother or dad or something plays that other one. Yeah.
So I guess he, like, when they made this film, he's like, I'll just get my family to act in it. And I'm sure this was like Lively's first thing that she ever did. And she's not good in it, but then she doesn't really have anything to do, really. She has like
she's like one line.
And it's stupid.
It's cringy, yeah.
But it is funny that in retrospect they go back and they're like, Blake Lively, and you're like, ooh, I need to see a horror film starring Blake Lively, and then this is not what you get at all.
No.
But maybe this catapulted her career, so good job, Blake.
I don't know. Hold on. Let me see. I'm trying to look up like her. Oh no, she was in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants prior to this.
What? So she must have just
2005.
done this as a favor. She must have just been like, yeah, Dad, I'll appear for 2 seconds in your film.
Yeah, although I don't think she's credited in this because to be fair, I'm just looking at her filmography on Rotten Tomatoes and it doesn't show that she's got a credit for it. But it was 2000.
Maybe she reached out and said, remove that shit off my IMDb page. I don't need it.
Maybe. But yeah, no, she was in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants in 2005. She was in Accepted in 2006, which is a decent little comedy with Justin Long. I don't know if you ever saw it or not.
Mm-mm.
And also I think it had a very early Jonah Hill.
Ooh.
It's a funny fucking movie, but that's just me. It's terrible.
That brings me to a question.
Okay.
Do you think that they thought this was going to be a good film? Do you think the people involved thought they were making something that could have been a hit? Or do you think, I'm just really trying to figure out intent on this film.
Yeah.
What are they going for? You can't really tell.
Yeah, obviously the director thought it was going to be good based on his reaction to the audience reaction. But as for the actors, maybe this is like a one of those Nicolas Cage thoughts on Wicker Man scenarios where Crispin Glover was like, this is a fucking ridiculous piece of shit. I'm going to go all out and make it a ridiculous piece of shit, a la Nick Cage in Wicker Man. Because you said he read that like it was a comedy.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was sort of the thing, and everybody else in it was like, okay, this is going to be like a slasher at the best. Just based on the performances. Everything's kind of very over the top. Nothing is really cohesive. Nobody seems to be trying to act like a normal person would. Save for maybe the stoner guy. He seemed like the most capable of the core group of actors. And it's funny, like,
the only one that was really kind of delightful.
Yeah, and he seemed like he was. Yeah, he didn't seem over the top at any point. Like, he seemed like he was legitimately trying to be an actor in a movie.
Although his voice acting was a little bit of a choice too.
Well, it was the stereotypical like stoner thing. His character reminded me so much of Fran Kranz from Cabin in the Woods.
Yes, I thought the same thing. I felt like an archetype for that.
Yeah, they must have taken from Cabin in the Woods. They must have like somebody saw this like, hey, use this character because it's almost identical. It is. I
thought the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have a good time with this movie. The special effects like really took me out of it.
They weren't very special.
No, they were barely effects.
So can we talk about when you talk about special effects?
Mm-hmm.
One of the notes that I had. Okay, for some reason, when we talk about plot holes, this film. I don't even think you call it plot holes. Like, what would you call it? Like a giant plot pit? Not like literally nothing makes sense.
Yeah, there's no plot to be had.
But for some reason in this air quotes plot, and that's the theme for the show is everything's air quotes. But Stanley and Simon, the twin brothers, for some reason have built these very elaborate death contraptions that they have all over the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And like crazy ass shit where it's like a I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like a contraption that flings all these axes through the woods. And so there's a scene where there's literally like thousands of axes just flying through the sky.
And the guy's like dodging them.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like they shot it thinking like it has that look of something that they shot for 3D because they kind of have it where it's projecting at you.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes 0.00 sense. Like, first of all, why does he have these contraptions? How did he make these contraptions? Like, why does he just have this shit just lying around? It's very elaborate stuff. And there's no story as to why he would do that. You know, why doesn't he just kill in some sort of like quote unquote normal way?
Yeah.
Why does he have to kill with this like?
I mean, they kind of set that up early when he's like flinging the rocks at his brother through the contraption, or what? I guess I don't even know if the brother's alive at that point. I don't know what point he kills him. If it's like that home video at the beginning, if that's when, because he like slams that kid's head in with a fucking truck, like a toy truck. But,
then he kills him again as a teenager. So I think
I don't know which is real, what's supposed to be. I don't know if the director even knows, to be honest. Yeah,
so I was gonna say I think that the opening scene was like just a dream because it's that one girl, the main girl.
Yeah.
And it's like she wakes up from it and she's dreamed it. Now, they never explain why she dreamed it or what it means or
what her connection to this
happening.
is. Yeah, who the fuck knows? Who the fuck cares?
Unless.
Did
okay,
you just come to like some sort of revelation?
Yeah, spoiler alert for anyone who
Nobody
plans
fucking
to
cares.
watch
Nobody plans
this
to watch this
horrific film.
No, just go. Just say it. You don't even need to spoil
this. There's this terrible, terrible ending of this film where the main girl, the dream girl, I don't know why she's the dream girl, but for some reason she is.
Yeah.
He has captured her and he's got her in a basement and she has given birth to twins. And so that's disgusting. And basically, I think it's implying like, oh no, another like crazy ass set of twins. So I don't know if maybe those are the like her twins, like their kids.
I would assume
that she's having a vision like, oh, they're going to be like these awful like Simon and Stanley characters. I actually just made that because when I watched it, I was like, what the fuck is even happening? Like, I don't understand what is happening in this film is not that complicated and I can't follow the plot to save my life, which is either says something really terrible about me or something terrible about the film, or both, perhaps, at the same time. But yeah, maybe that's the case. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, there are a lot of weird things in this film that predate some other, like, actual good horror films, like Cabin in the Woods. And you're like, surely Simon Says wouldn't be source material for other filmmakers. Like, that's kind of a crazy leap to go. But I feel like other filmmakers saw this film and then did it better.
Yeah, this also has a little bit of a Wrong Turn vibe to it as well.
Yep.
I'm not sure what predated what. They're both very around the same time. But
what is that movie with John Lithgow where he plays like evil twins?
I have no fucking clue.
All right, I need to look it up. I should have been prepared. There's a movie that is got a similar. I mean, obviously it's a great movie. It's not this piece of shit, but it's got a similar sort of vibe or storyline.
Are you sure it's
about
John
twins?
Lithgow?
I feel very positive that it's John Lithgow. Are you looking it up right now?
Yeah,
because I know you like to do on-the-fly research because it's so good for radio.
Well, I mean, we're talking about it. We got to know what the fuck it is. Do you know when it was around?
I want to say 90s, but I might be
that old.
straws
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's old.
Okay.
Maybe early 2000s, but I feel like it might be older than that.
God damn, John Lithgow, you've been in a lot of stuff.
He's a prolific actor, so that might not be easy. It's oh god, it's it's on the tip of my tongue now.
Johnny Skidmarks. Because he's in a movie called Johnny Skidmarks. I feel like you have to say that
he was not.
Yes,
no,
he was.
He was not. Stop
I'm swear to God, he played Larry Skovic in a movie called Johnny Skidmarks.
Definitely not Johnny Skidmarks. I'll tell you that right now.
It was.
I'm gonna scroll through because I'll know it if I see it.
That was in '98.
This is such a good use of our airtime. And here's the thing, guys. We're not gonna edit this. Like, this is gonna be
Silent Fall, where he played Dr. Renee Harlinger.
No.
Harlinger.
He plays twin brothers, so just keep that in mind.
Okay, so it'd be like he played Steve/Frank. Raising Cain.
I think it's Raising Cain. Yes, I do believe it's Raising Cain. That sounds familiar.
That kind of looks.
What year is that?
92. An oncologist wife of a prominent child psychologist suspects her husband has an unhealthy scientific obsession with her child, unaware of what or who is really going on. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it's definitely because he plays Carter and Cain. Yeah, it's definitely Raising Cain. Right. It's quite good.
I've heard
John
of Raising
Lithgow
Cain.
Is obviously amazing. Yeah. I don't. It's been a while since I've seen it because I can't even remember the name of it. But I think there's some similarities.
Well, I mean, the split personality twin thing has been done thousands of times. That's not like an original concept. It doesn't really go well here.
It doesn't. And there's a lot of like confusion as far as
was there actually twins?
That whole thing of like. Yeah, are there twins? Did he kill his twin and assume his identity? Are the both twins actually really alive? Because they sort of play with you. We're like, oh, it's just the one guy. Oh no, actually it is two.
Mm-hmm.
Who honestly, at the end of it, who the fuck
knows?
Well, no,
he does tell you at the end because he goes, "I'm Stanley and I'm Simon." Like he does that, like he says it like blatantly while he's chasing the girl through the woods. But
doesn't that other twin like show up at the end? Maybe I'm hallucinating.
Like at the very, very end?
I feel like yes.
No.
But maybe I'm crazy.
No, because he's looking in the two mirrors and he's like, I'm Stanley. Slap, slap. I'm Stanley. Like he's like trying to like tell himself who he is today sort of thing. And then he comes out as Simon anyway, but
when you just did that, I regret so much. I literally thought about this when we watched this film. And I brought this up before, and I know you always groan when I do it, but you remember when we used to do our dramatic readings, which I think that we should not ever have let go of. How good would this film have been for a dramatic reading? Like, and I just I would have given you all the lines. I would have had nothing to say. Maybe I would have been one of the girls that says something like, help me. And you would have done all the like heavy voice acting, but it would have been amazing. And we should probably just do it on the fly.
Oh, yeah. Because the script was so memorable that, I memorized the whole thing.
Here's how memorable this script is. I would love to, if I may, read you the IMDb description for it, for this amazingly deep driven film.
Okay.
5 high school seniors, parentheses, 3 cute girls. What? In a VW van on their way to camp by a river in the forest, hear about a boy who once killed his identical twin and parents in the area. They ignore the warning. That is the fucking description. And I just love that in the official description, it has parentheses, 3 cute girls, as if somehow
that makes a difference.
Has anything to do with anything. It's just an absolute delight.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes descriptions are fun. There was one on Netflix for, this is off topic, obviously, for a Liam Neeson movie. I forget what it was called, but the description was literally like a guy boards a train and seeks revenge.
And shit happens.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? And I'm pretty sure there was a typo in it, too. I'm like, there's 5 words and you spelled one of them wrong. Like, how did this happen? But beside the point. Yeah, this movie, I mean, Crispin Glover does his best to be like the name, and he does his best to carry the movie, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Crispin Glover in the first place. I mean, he's not like Nick Cage level of hatred for me, but
shut your face.
He's not.
Listen,
great.
Can we at least agree that here's one thing I do love about, I think you might agree on this, maybe. Although you might just argue to argue, because that's sort of your fun thing to do too.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing about Crispin is that it's not like he ever phones it in. You know, like, I get it if you're like, okay, because his performances are always pretty over the top. I mean, that's sort of how he reads every character. You talked about how he read the script. I think he just reads every script as like, oh, my character is unhinged, and that's what I'm going to do. But I think the one thing about him that I just love, that I find so endearing, is that it doesn't matter what kind of a shit film he's in, he always just brings it. Now, whether it is something that you want to see or not is up for debate, but he's like, this film is not, he's not lazily traipsing through it. Like, he's giving his all, and he is trying to be as unhinged as possible, and he is definitely unhinged.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I think there's 2 different ways of phoning shit in. There's obviously the way of just literally like doing the bare minimum and getting your paycheck and going the fuck home. But then there's the like, I hate this, so I'm gonna do everything in my power to sabotage it, sort of phone it in.
I don't think he does that. I really don't think he's like, I'm trying to sabotage.
I mean,
this.
I don't say in this movie particularly, but I mean, I could see his acting style kind of maybe running that fine line between like sabotage and doing what he thinks is right for the movie, even though it may not be.
I do think he would be hard to direct. I think he's somebody who's like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Wasn't
there's some director who said that? Like, you can't work with Crispin Glover unless he wants to do the movie. Like, if he's not 100% in, he's impossible to work with.
I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong, because that does sound accurate.
And I think that was on like a late night show as well. Or like, didn't he do something stupid on a late night TV show and he got like
probably
kicked off forever?
I think Crispin is one of those people that, you know, like, you watch a lot of characters, like Nick Cage is a good example, where you're like, I wonder what they're like in real life. Are they like their persona on screen? And Nick Cage, I don't think is. I think he's just like a normal dude who's able to channel that crazy. But Crispin is one of those guys that, like, I think is his characters off screen. Like, I think he is just Crispin Glover all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just nutty. I mean, obviously I don't know him. We're not besties. I wish we were, but because I think he'd be cool as hell to be friends with. But I get the vibe, or from what I've heard, that he's just a, you know, cranked up to 11 all the time. And he just does whatever. And so if you cast him, you have to kind of be, again, it's like casting Nick Cage. It's like, I want, you cast somebody because you want Nick Cage energy. You have to want Crispin Glover energy. That has to suit your film. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, you know what you're getting. It's not like it's a secret, right? That he's a fucking nut job. So,
I mean, I would cast him in a heartbeat if I was making a movie.
I don't know. Would you though? Because you can't like, yeah, but I mean, what if he started doing things you didn't like?
I guess I would just have to be okay with it and be like, you know what? Like, I think you have to write the right kind of role, you know, and you have to expect the crate. Like, I'm not going to cast him in a serious Shakespearean drama and be like, Crispin, I really need you to be I need you to have a lot of depth and emotional soul in this scene, you know? I'm going to cast him as a crazy. And then I'm just going to sit back and let him do his thing, and it's going to be probably epic.
Speaking of crazy, can we talk about the language of this movie? How many times do they throw around the word retard?
Oh, well, I mean,
it brings me back, but that's what I meant earlier when I said these movies are very of their time. Like in 2000 to 2010, like retard was the word for everything. Like gay, like describing something is gay, right? Like even though it's not gay, it's like, oh, that's gay. And I was just like, oh my God, this is fucking high school all over again.
Do you remember, and I think it was actually fairly recently, honestly, within the last like maybe decade, where we as a society decided that was not okay? Like at what point?
Well, there were a bunch of
words.
words.
2006.
Yeah. And filmed arguably
like
probably 2005.
Or was it earlier than that? When did we really say as a society, like, hey, you know what? That's not actually cool.
I don't know. It kind of like
it was way later than it should have been. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, that depends on who you ask. I mean, you go back to like the 80s and stuff, and people would say terrible fucking words all the time. But there's the word, and then there's how the word is interpreted, right? Like nobody ever.
Sure.
Well, in this movie, when they said retard, they meant like actually like mentally disabled or whatever. But when I would say it, when I was a teenager or whatever, I didn't mean it in like that sense. I didn't mean it as an insult. It was just a word to describe something that didn't make sense. Right? Like, oh my God, that guy ran a red light. He must be retarded. Like that's, or something along those lines.
It was part of our vernacular.
Yeah. And it was
common,
just, and same with like gay. Like I have a friend who's gay and he still uses the term gay to describe stupid shit. You know, it's like that he's like, I just grew up saying it as I can't get it out of my vernacular now. Like it's part of my vocabulary. And it's just whatever. But yeah, it was so, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so 2006. Like,
you know, it's funny because there's a scene pretty early on that is objectively hilarious, but it uses that word. And I was like, well, I don't really feel like I could talk about it or do the scene justice without saying it. I didn't really want to say it, but where Crispin, as I think he's a Simon. You know, he's playing Simon at this part. In when they first meet him in the like little.
Is that where he runs back and there's like, I'm not crazy, I'm retarded. Is that the scene you're talking about?
He says he's not. He's not our word, and he's like, but he's like screaming it, and then he's like, "I'm not this, I'm not crazy, Simon, not crazy," and then he's like, "Not crazy, not our word," and it's like, it's so again, it's Crispin being Crispin. It's so fucking over the top and ridiculous that if you don't laugh though, you might be dead inside because as terrible as it is, it's also quite hilarious.
I believe I chuckled at that moment too.
And that's the kind of energy. And I will say this. I'm going to give you a point, even though I hate to. I think that Crispin is the best part of this movie. I stand by this. I think without him, I mean, it's not good with him. Let's be fair. But without him, it is such a forgettable steaming pile of shit that like it's just garbage. He at least makes it watchable, I think, and
I mean, if you
fun.
like that sort of shit, but yeah.
If you like that sort of shit, yeah, he definitely brings that. But I do think they overused him. I was happy to see him as much as he is, but I think that he loses that charm and that edge when he's in it too much. I think if they had held that back a little bit and, you know, had his scenes be like really like big moments, that would have helped. But then in order to do that, you would have had to actually develop the other characters and make them interesting, and that was not happening. So I can see why they lean so heavily into him, because he's really the only one that brought anything to the table that made it interesting to watch.
He's the only actor in the movie, I would say. I don't think the other people did anything else other than maybe this movie. I mean, I don't know for certain, but I've never seen any of them anywhere else.
Well, and they're all very badly written, so it's hard to know if they're just shitty actors or they're just given nothing to work with. Like, they are given... I mean, I thought the lead girl was pretty okay. Like, she didn't blow my mind, but she was all right, you know?
Ironically, I just clicked on her Rotten Tomatoes profile.
Yeah.
And her highest scoring movie is like a 40%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm...
Oh, wait, no, she has an 82, but I don't know, like... What the fuck?
I don't think these actors are running around making like the best choices for their career.
But it's a paycheck,
we also
right?
talk about,
there's something to say,
Sure.
like, like I would much rather have her career than mine.
I would have made this film if I'm being honest. Like, I would have read the script and been like, yeah, I'd fucking do this. This sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, even like outside of that, like just to be like, I'm being paid to be in movies. It doesn't matter if they're good movies or bad movies. If it's just like being an athlete, right? Like if somebody's going to pay you even less than minimum wage to play your favorite sport, you're going to take it over them standing in a factory all fucking day slogging boxes around, right?
Sure. And there are people who have like,
I would never hold that against somebody. If they chose to do terrible movies, but they make a living and they don't have to go work at fucking Walmart every day, then good for them.
No, you're totally right. And there are people who have like great careers who only do like B-movie shitty films, like super fun, low budget B-movie films. And they have a great time. They have a great career. They get paid. They're doing what they love. Like,
and then some get like a cult following, like a Vin Lowry or something like that, right? Like,
yeah, a lot of them get cult followings, at least in the indie community. Like their names are known. They're kind of big quote unquote stars for these super low budget B movies. There's definitely an audience for that. And the thing about this film, though, is that I don't think it was supposed to be a low budget B movie, but it definitely plays like one. Yeah,
the way the special effects or the effects in general go, like they use that.
Do you think they spent money on those though? Because they had quite a lot of them, and they were very elaborate.
They must have spent money on those.
Right?
I mean, especially in 2007, like
so
that
sad.
wouldn't have been super. Like it would not have been cheap to do anything in terms of like computer rendering, I'd imagine. But they use the same sort of animation over and over again, like that quick stomp or the quick like crush animation when he steps on the dog or when he
Casey, I am so glad you brought that up because I almost forgot to talk about that. Can I derail you for 1 second and say like I think we just need to tell people, just in the off chance that somebody wants to go watch this just to see how nutty it is, there's a fucking scene where Crispin Glover literally stomps a little white poodle and crushes him to death, and it's pretty visceral and it's very unnecessary, and it's gonna piss a lot of people off because there's a whole website dedicated to like,
does
do
the
they
dog
kill
die?
the dog?
Yeah.
The dog definitely dies in this, and it's seriously fucked up. And not only does he kill it, but then there's like it's prolonged where the dog, like the dead dog, makes appearance for like the next couple scenes and is referenced, and it's super like I gasped out loud when that happened. I was like, no they did not, and they did.
The only thing that made it like not terrible for me was that it was so poorly done. Like I didn't feel anything. I'm like, clearly that dog didn't die. Like sometimes you watch like I Am Legend, like that fucking dog died. That real life dog really died. But this one is just like
dog died.
It looks like a furry fucking like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a character from Shrek just got crushed. Like I'm not like distraught in any way.
It's badly done, but I think even badly done, it upsets people because the idea that they would,
because the dog dies. Nobody wants to see the dog die.
Yeah, and it's again like so many choices in both of these films. It doesn't do anything. Like there's no reason for it other than just to be shocking.
That scene
just to be
was,
like, look what we did.
Completely irrelevant to the rest of the movie.
I do think that when the paintballers get killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was also
like,
very confusing.
It feels like a very clear ripoff of Friday the 13th part, like, what is it, like 7? With that scene?
Probably.
I don't know. You should know. You this is your wheelhouse.
Not
but
the
anyway,
Friday movie so much, but yes, continue.
Anyway, and it is actually a pretty cool kill scene, and they're only there just to pad the kill numbers. They're there for like 2 seconds. There's some paintballers and then they're dead.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty fun scene. And there's a lot of stuff in there that's definitely like homage to 80s slashers. So there's some, I guess, like I would say in any other film I might say kind of reverential stuff, but I don't actually think that this filmmaker is a genre fan or somebody who knows the language of genre films.
Well,
I think he's just like
we went over his filmography. He has like 8 baseball movies under his belt.
So I think he's just
seriously.
like, and I think it really is like, it's crazy because it sort of feels like it's just an ego project to be like, I'm a badass. Look at how I can make this badass movie that's super tough, and I don't just make family films. But also, like, it's in no way badass. Or does it come off as like you're super competent at making the hardcore movies?
Yeah, no. I mean, unless this director... Oh my God, he's Canadian, the director.
Oh, of course he is.
Of course he is. Born in
fucking
Toronto, Ontario,
Canadians. Jesus
Canada.
Christ.
He hasn't done a movie since 2016, though.
Can we... Well, he was... Like I said, he was like in his 60s when he made this, which was 2005,
Well,
6.
he was born
so.
in... Yeah, he was born in 44, so... I mean, that's what's the same age. I'm like, yeah, he's getting up there now. Same age as
So
my
it's probably
granddad,
just
really.
not like... He doesn't really... He's like, you know what? I can retire, I think.
Yeah.
Not that old people can't... I mean, you can make movies as long as you want, but
He also
I can
made
understand the desire to
Rocketeer.
be like, I'm done.
Interesting.
Can I talk about before, because I think we can end. I think we've said all we need to say. But
Yeah,
can I
there's
just
not much
please
else to
bring up one scene that I again had to rewind several times to make sure I wasn't missing something?
I guess.
Can you just guess? I want you to guess before I tell you. I want you to guess the scene that I was like, why is this scene here, and what are they trying to do with it, and I don't understand what's happening.
One immediately comes to mind, but I don't I don't know if it's the same thing because you sound like it's not relevant. But when she like pops out of the fucking body and chops him in the head with the cleaver,
No, that was actually cool. I thought
it was cool, but it was not because he was like pinned to a tree. Where'd she go in the body from?
no, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Nothing makes any sense in this film.
And it was very
Literally
obvious that was going to
nothing.
happen. I'm like, she's going to pop out of that body the way they had it framed and everything. But yeah, I don't know
That's
that.
what I'm saying. Like, calling it plot holes seems like it's a misnomer because plot holes implies that there is a plot, but there are some things that don't make sense. But nothing in this whole movie makes any sense. So there's not really plot holes. There's just zero actual believable, understandable plot. It's just a series of things that happen and Crispin Glover acting crazy.
Yeah, pretty
But the
much.
scene in question, they are in a car and they're all these like co-eds are driving.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this couple, this guy and this girl in the back seat, and then there's another like kind of, she's like the
slut.
you know, the slutty girl, which I
Yeah.
hate that word, but for this
Whatever.
purpose, she's
That's
played as
exactly
the
what she.
slutty girl.
That's her character. Are you talking about
There's
the
a
finger
scene-
through the pants? Or are you
Yeah.
talking about the hitchhiker? Because neither one makes any sense.
The hitchhiker was kind of fun. No, I'm talking about the pants scene where I'm like, what are we doing here and why?
Yeah. Because I'm guessing it's because the director was like, my son played this funny joke. And he put his finger through his pants and it looked like a penis. I'm going to add it to the movie. Or something stupid like that.
Oh, God. And that whole like love triangle thing. I mean, it's just the nuttiest choices that this film makes. That and the girl, I actually thought she was kind of funny. The girl that like is just running the whole movie. Like she's like, I'm a runner. That's my personality. And the whole movie, while this shit's happening, she's just running through the woods, and she keeps like showing up in scenes.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like cartoonish, where she's like suddenly she's not there, and then suddenly she's there because she's running through the woods.
Yeah. First
And she
faith
keeps
now,
catching
Katie.
this-
You're not touching me.
Yeah.
Runs away. Yeah.
As if he's even like trying to touch her. Like it's just, and then she gets killed, obviously. And it's so funny because they set up that she's like this great runner, and she
She
dies
trims-
because she can't run.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And then they turn her
I
head
mean,
into like
and
a fucking stereo.
yeah, and it's the kind of thing where you're like, well, if this was intended to be a comedy,
It nailed
like,
it.
that's stupid. It's kind of funny, but if it's serious, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But yeah, I think that's our show. I think we had a couple of great gems. You're welcome, Casey. I think I really brought my A game to the show today and picked, some of the best cinema that we've explored on the show. Both of these, in my defense, both of these were first time watches for me.
Uh-huh.
I was only going off of like the trailer and what I could glean from what these films were about, and just thought they look like they'd be fun to talk about.
Right.
Whether they were fun to talk about, I don't know. Go ahead.
I have to just say one thing, because you're like the voice acting of the stoner guy. You're like, that was meh, right? He's gone on to make a career as a voice actor.
Well, it's not that, like, I think the choice of how they had him talk was ridiculous.
Kind of like a Shaggy sort of thing. Yeah.
It was clearly an affected voice. Like, it's clearly not his just normal speaking voice. And it's the quintessential where you're like, oh my God, dude, it's so cool. Like, they took the stoner vibe thing so over the top. Mm-hmm. Like, you talked about Cabin in the Woods. That's an example of a stoner where they, like, it's a caricature, but they, like, did it in such a way where it still felt like a believable character, like a real character, and not so over the top that it was just asinine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was just like it's the typical thing where they take a character and they reduce their entire personality to one trait. Where it's like, I'm, like we talked about, I'm the slutty girl, I'm the stoner. It's that sort of tropey shit where which is, I mean, you expect that in these kind of films, so I'm not like gonna harsh it too much for that, but yeah, I mean, I actually like the stoner guy. I thought he was really fun, but his voice did grate on my nerves a little bit. Yeah,
it was a little sharp, I guess. A shrill would probably be the better word for it, but yeah.
But he was the only character that I felt anything for when he died, so kudos to him for that.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's kind of sad when he died.
It's almost like killing the dog, right? Like, he's an innocent, stupid stoner guy.
Yeah, it is like killing the dog. Yeah. It's like it's a really good, like, because he's like a little puppy dog.
Yeah.
No. He just was like, had his moment where he confesses his love to the girl and then gets killed. And it's like, no, that's a little sad.
And then she bursts out of his body, but, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, there's some nutty scenes in this film.
Yeah.
But maybe next time I think you're going to have to pick.
I'll do my best. See, you just have this like weird library of obscure fucking movies nobody's ever heard of. And sadly, my depth of movie knowledge is not that deep. So it's always like, let's talk about Scream because it's popular. And you're like, no, it's stupid. Shut up. Go away.
I don't want to destroy the mythos of Stephanie, but I will say that I use Google. I mean, it's not like I have this thing in my head where I'm like, oh, here's 10 million films that I just keep like locked in a library that I can access at any point. I do have to like, come up with them and then do some research to try to figure out like, is there something cool we could talk about that I haven't seen or that might be fun? So it's, you know what I mean? It's not like I was sitting around going, you know what? I'm just dying to talk about Shallow Grave and Simon Says. Like, this has been on my radar for a long time and let's try to talk about them.
Okay, if you say so.
I think you're giving me too much credit. I don't know
if it's credit or some like weird like autistic savant syndrome, where you're like, these are the fucking things I know, and like I count horror movies and I remember them all word for word.
I always wish I had a superpower, but I don't know if that's the one that I would wish for.
That'd be like,
it's kind of useless, but it feels like if I was going to have a superpower, it would be a useless one like that.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
That gets me absolutely nowhere in life and has zero benefits and doesn't pay me and
like,
all that
my
good stuff.
Superpower is my farts don't smell. Great.
I mean, I guess that would be kind of nice. That would be
I guess you just kind of go wherever you want.
Uncomfortable situations. Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
It's better than nothing. I'll say that. Like, I guess I think that's even more useful than just knowing a lot of useless shit about horror films.
Well, not unless you start a podcast and make millions and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do.
No, I am.
This is our job. This is what we do.
Yeah.
It makes us a living. Clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have 2 listeners, but they each donate about $100,000 each. So
every week. One's Jeff Bezos, the other one is
them.
Elon Musk. So yeah.
Oh God, I might just quit. Like, even if we were like breaking in the dough, if those were our 2 listeners and our biggest supporters, I'd be like, you know what?
Well, then I'm glad I have a library of recordings of you speaking. I would just continue on by myself with you.
You would have to, because I'd be like, this feels a little soul.
For $200,000 a week? Now. Yeah, I would do that.
I don't know. Maybe I would do it. I mean, I guess if we have to live in a world with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like, at least they should be paying us, right? For their existence.
Well, yeah.
We should be getting something out of it other than just the fact that they're taking up space and
harsh
being problematic.
Just
know.
wait till one of them
Listen.
buys Spotify, and then we're fucked because then we're not gonna have a host anymore, and because they're gonna listen to this and be like, "That fucking assholes."
Oh, well, Spotify owns Anchor, which is our podcast platform,
know.
so we might already be screwed.
Yeah, no, I don't know who owns Spotify,
But they don't own Spotify. You're right.
Yeah,
Duh, I'm sorry. I was like, look, I've made this great connection that is not a connection at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's a connection I made like 5 minutes ago. It's okay. Yeah. Speaking of connections, I guess if you want to,
So if you like connections,
yeah, you can leave a review or a voicemail thingy. I think they still do that. There's also like Q&A things that are popping up.
Yes.
Then you can like just ask us shit or like comment. I think on Spotify now, it's changing like literally every day. So I'm having a hard time keeping up with how this shit works.
Yeah.
But I think you can do that anyway. That's how you can do it, and leaving reviews and ratings and all that kind of fun stuff. Just do it. It takes like 2 seconds. Just fucking do it. I'm sorry.
No, I get it. As you're talking, I'm like, no one's gonna do this.
No one's gotten this far in the fucking
Which
episode.
is so sad.
So yeah.
Yeah, no one cares. No one gives a shit.
No.
But that's we're doing this for authentic love, right? Not
And
for
the $200,000 a week from Bezos and Musk.
It definitely helps a lot.
Yes.
Oh, if we were getting $200,000 a week, maybe we would actually like be on schedule and be consistent and all that good stuff. Maybe, I don't know. Probably
Well,
not.
I feel like it's just their assistants sending money now, because like it used to be, at the start of a new episode or we get the money, but now it's just coming every week, regardless of what we put out.
So we're just on auto. Oh my God, we're on autopilot with them. They're like, yeah, they're good enough. They've proven themselves.
Yeah.
Now we don't have to even follow up. We can just trust that they're putting out phenomenal quality every
and
every
that's
2 weeks.
kind of twofold. Like we're getting money for free, but we don't have any listeners now, so.
This show, I think it's apropos that this show has derailed, given how much these films went off the rails. So
that's every episode.
It's all very.
We never know how to end. Endings are hard.
thematic.
Okay, goodbye.